I've shown this deck before as a fully functional deck, but when I first got it, it needed replacement belts, which have come in. And now I'm going to show you how easy it is to fit these new belts in this deck. It's a 1976 vintage AWA CJ8AW520. Let's open her up and see how we go with the belts. Now, with both covers top and bottom removed, this is the bottom of the deck. Let's undo the bracket that holds the flywheel, which is a nice heavy metal flywheel. It's held by 3 screws. The center screw is just like a center bearing for the flywheel, so you can actually leave that in place. The bracket pops off, and we actually have to remove the flywheel to get to the second belt, which I use just use a rubber belt just to see how the deck works and so forth. This was supposed to be a flat belt, but that's all I had that was long enough to see how it works. Take a note of all the brass pulleys on it. So we'll get this belt off. So it didn't fit on there properly, it just popped off like that. We'll have to get this one off. That's a capstan flywheel, and the bottom belt is attached to the bottom of the capstan flywheel. And yeah, I don't recommend using this, but I had to try it out with something. I was so keen to try it out that I used it. Now, while we're there, I've got some oil that I'm going to lubricate the capstan bearings with while we're here. And that should be plenty for it there. Also, the motor shaft wouldn't be a bad idea to lubricate. I'm just using a toothpick and dipping it in oil. This is about all you need. You don't need a lot more than that. And maybe just move that around up and down to work the oil in. A few times. If there's any excess, clean it off so it doesn't get over the belts again. And that's lubricated. You might want to give it a slide of a bit of a loop to the shifting mechanism. Any excess, clean it up. It'll be my recommendation. So it all works nice and smoothly. Clean up all the excess lube that's left, including around the motor shaft. All the gunk from the belts, especially from the wide belt I've cleaned up earlier, It left a bit of residue in all the pulleys. It's all gone now, it's all been cleaned up properly. Since I was waiting for the belts and I wanted to try out how it works. It's all cleaned up now and lubed up. I've also lubed up the capstan shaft, which I'll have to clean up once it goes back into the mechanism. I'll have to clean up so it doesn't leave any greasy residue on the tape. And now the belts themselves. I think I have to clean up the inside of this as well. The bottom belt goes on the bottom spindle of the capstan roller, and that goes straight back in and drops in nice and smoothly. That goes around that pulley there and that pulley there. Now the interesting thing is, when that drops in, the correct path for the belt is on the inside of that idler pulley. If you put on the outside, the cassette deck will turn backwards when it's in play, which is something you don't want happening unless you want chewed up tapes, or you test tape at least before you realise what you've done. So that goes on the inside of the idler pulley, and that just spun on itself and it's worked itself on there properly, and it looks really good. Now with the wide belt, the belts were about 13 bucks, just over 13 bucks for the two of them. And that one goes around the capstan pulley and on the motor itself. I was going to say, what's going on? That's a bit loose. It's not on there properly. It does seem a bit loose. But then again, you don't want too much tension on the bearings. And I've got grease on it. Alright. So a bit of alcohol and clean up again. Some of the lube found its way onto the belt. Same with this motor shaft. Clean it up with alcohol. Get rid of the lube. The belt I've already cleaned up. This is actually really basic to put these belts on. I've done belts on a more modern boombox, and that was really hard to get to. You had to unbolt layers and layers of things to get to the, well, not so much the belts themselves, although they were a handful too, especially the tire and so forth. This is really easy to get to. Now let's lube up the center bearing on the motor. It's probably a bit rich. Just on the tip. And yeah, I'm not sure if this belt is not too loose. I guess there's only one way to find out, by having it all put together and trying it out. So let's get the rest of the things on. Put back together. Get the bracket back on. Tighten up evenly. And now that center bearing thing, lightly, that's just a plastic centering screw, and that is back together. I guess there's one way to find out if that belt is loose enough, or tight enough I should say, or if it's too loose. Now I have to clean up the capstan from the other side, and like I said, this belt here that goes around here, it needs to be on this side of the idler wheel. If it goes on the outside, if you put it like this on the outside of the idler wheel, the deck will turn backwards, play backwards. It will rewind and fast forward fine, but it will play backwards. So you need it on this side, on the inside, belts together for it to play properly. Now the capstan that was lubricated will have to be cleaned from the top side of the mechanism where it comes in contact with the tape. Now I've cleaned up the capstan properly by rotating the flywheel from underneath and spinning it, and cleaning the whole of the capstan. I've cleaned out the heads on it again, and it's ready for its test run. Alright, I've got it hooked up. Let's turn it on. It's connected into the amplifier. And we'll throw this on. And it sounds like you'll need a speed adjustment. Yeah, we'll definitely need a speed adjustment now. Okay, I've loosened it up a bit on that center bearing on the flywheel. And it's working a lot better. A lot better. So that center bearing on the flywheel was a bit too tight, and that did the job just nicely, and it plays the way it should. Thanks for watching. So this is the sound coming out of the AWA with Dolby B on, and now I'll switch it over to the Yami. Same tune on a different tape, and this is the sound coming out of the Yami. And now I'll switch it over to the AWA. AWA Yami with heads adjusted on the Yami. AWA less bright, but the speed seems to be correct now, and it's working all good.